Hey everyone, welcome back to the Dynasty Daddy YouTube channel. Today we're doing what everyone wants me to do, a NFL mock draft. It will be a one-round rookie mock draft for a 12-team start 10 super flex league with full PPR and a .75 tight end premium. We'll be using our friends over at DD Fantasy Football, a draft done by Ray Garvin for landing spots, so we at least can kind of talk different situations of how certain drafts may shake out. So if you haven't seen that video, definitely check it out. Ray goes into depth on all the picks using the PFF mock drafts simulator, which is really fun. So let's jump on into it. The first pick in this Superflex mock draft, we will be selecting Ashton Jeanty from Boise State. This is kind of the obvious choice. Jeanty posted amazing PFF grades all 3 years he's played and continues to just get better. Jeanty had over 2,500 rushing yards and 29 touchdowns. In Ray's mock draft, Jeanty went 24th to the Vikings. This landing spot would be incredible. Already a locked-in high-end talent, and then you put him in one of the best offensive schemes out there. If you're holding Aaron Jones, it might be a bad day for you there, but Jeanty's obviously going to come in to that offense and be a locked-in player, and I think it's realistic kind of to where he may actually fall in the draft. Given that it's a deeper class, I don't think we're going to see teams reach as high for Jeanty because they know that there's still a lot of day 2, day 3 running backs that have a lot of value. And a big takeaway, too, is the game against Oregon. Stiff competition, but Jeanty still performed incredibly well. I would not have any doubts that this guy's a high-caliber NFL running back. And given how the Dynasty rankings currently sit, I think he'll probably come in right off the rip as RB3 in Dynasty behind Gibbs and Bijan. At the 102, I will be selecting Tetairoa McMillan out of Arizona State. Tet had 1,300 receiving yards and 8 receiving touchdowns this year. One thing to note is his offense, particularly his QB play, definitely took a step back this year. I was hoping for a little bit more down the stretch. Obviously, he had his incredible 300-yard, 4-touchdown game week 1 against New Mexico. But then he had multiple other games that were pretty impressive. West Virginia, over 200 yards. Texas Tech, 161 yards. So multiple games over that century mark, boasting high 80s PFF scores for the past 2 years. He's a locked-in contributor at all levels. And kind of that true big body X receiver. If you can look at his success rate, he not only performed really well in the middle of the field, but he also was able to stretch the field and get those high-level out route, post routes, things like that. So that's kind of what you want to look for. I'm not by any means an elite level scout. That's why I'm here. That's why I make a fantasy football website. But Tetairoa McMillan is certainly someone that I want to see. In Ray's mock draft, he went number 7 to the Jets. If we look at wide receivers that have gone top 10, you're talking Malik Neighbors, you're talking Marvin Harrison. You're talking the top-end talents that in the Dynasty game will have insulated value even if they don't perform up to snuff. And Tech, if he was in the 2024 draft class, I would still put him behind the likes of Marv and Neighbors, but Tech would personally be ahead of Rome, in my opinion. At the 103, I'm going to take Omarion Hampton, running back from North Carolina. This hurts as an NC State fan, but I've seen Omarion Hampton absolutely crush NC State constantly. I mean, he's an all-around back, posting 88 PFF scores for the past 2 years and crushing teams. I mean, multiple games and 200 yards, multiple touchdowns. He had 1,600 rushing yards and 15 rushing touchdowns. He would easily be an RB1, the RB1 in the 2024 class. It's just the fact that this class is so loaded. In Ray's draft, he didn't crack the first round, which isn't super surprising. There's a lot of talent there. But this tier of McMillan and Hampton and some of the players below is very big. But I prefer to have the upside of a Hampton, someone that can be that 3-down back at the next level. Next up at the 104, we are playing in a 12-team Superflex draft. It's time to bite the bullet on these quarterbacks that I'm not super high on, but a quarterback taken number 1 overall by the Titans, most likely, Cam Ward out of Miami. You have to take the quarterback. You have to take the quarterback that went number 1 overall. He's going to have a long leash. And we saw Cam Ward consistently get better everywhere he went. Last year, he posted a 92 PFF score, played pretty incredible. He had big games against Florida, Louisville, FSU, constantly put under pressure as well. This team had to make multiple comebacks as a favorite, which I know can be very hard. It's a lot easier to play with house money, as we saw with the Commanders against the Lions. I remember the Virginia Tech game in particular. He really elevated his game towards the end and led that team, even though kind of questionable call at the end. But again, that's just how the game goes. In Ray's mock draft, Cam Ward went number 1 to the Titans, which is pretty much every mock draft I see at this point has said that. I'm no quarterback expert. If I was, I would be highly paid at an NFL front office. In the middle of this draft, in the 2025 draft, I'm certainly looking to take a quarterback with my first round pick. Ideally, I don't want to reach even more. I think the first top 3, maybe even top 4. There's a lot of talent at the running back position that I would prefer to have, and maybe pick up like a Tet or Travis Hunter or someone like that. But Cam Ward in the middle of the draft, you got to take that quarterback that has the leash. We see it every year. There's quarterbacks that will get at least 2 years or 3 years, and even if it's just mid-quarterback play, knowing that you don't have to address that position for multiple years is worth the investment. At the 105, it's Mr. Rolex, or whatever his watch brand is himself, Shedeur Sanders. I'm a big fan of Shedeur Sanders' game. I think personally, I kind of like him more than Cam Ward, but Cam Ward does have a bigger arm and has that more mobile build. Shedeur Sanders out of Colorado goes number 3 to the Giants in Ray's mock draft. Again, similar philosophy and process. Quarterback at the top end of the draft. I mean, we're not even talking like a Bo Nix, Penix range. Like, we're talking top 3, top 5. The level of investment you have to take. And 2, I think Sanders' situation will be very, very solid. Going in with Dable, going in with Neighbors already locked in. Even Wayndale Robinson's a solid wide receiver. I certainly can think Shedeur Sanders will build a good connection with Neighbors. This situation is one of the more ideal situations I have. I mean, him being stuck in like the Cleveland Browns situation or some of those other situations that have those high picks, I'd be a little bit more concerned. So Shedeur Sanders at the 105. Next up, RB Fever is back with Kaleb Johnson out of Iowa. Kaleb Johnson had 1,500 rushing yards and 21 touchdowns. Really just carried that Iowa offense. 86.2 PFF grade. He's someone that, to me, based on what his landing spot is, could totally jump up higher in the draft. He's in the same tier as a Hampton and anyone above him except for Jeanty. It just really comes down to his landing spot, and the more information we get from the NFL, the more confident I'm going to feel. But when you're in this range, especially if the quarterbacks go earlier, I think this is a great range to be in. You can scoop up some value in a Johnson, in a Tyler Warren, someone that has that high-level draft capital. In Ray's draft, he only covered the first round, and Johnson was not a first-round pick. Not surprisingly, a lot of running backs in this class that have talent. So right now, I will put Johnson at the 107. This would certainly change once we get more information. I think after this, it gets a little gray, a little bit hairy. But I have, based on purely what the mock draft that Ray did, Ray has Tyler Warren, tight end out of Penn State, going to the Saints at 9. I think in a tight end premium league, that's 0.75 or more, Tyler Warren at the 106 is a great situation to invest in. I mean, Tyler Warren basically was that Penn State offense. He was the go-to safety blanket. Going to the Saints, which love to use their tight ends, and kind of have this hodgepodge of random tight ends, and obviously Taysom Hill's its own thing, but having a locked-in young guy to really be the core centerpiece. Hopefully Olave comes back and they can kind of play off each other. Warren had a 91.2 PFF grade last year, which is incredible, but not surprising. He played incredibly well and really was just dominant on all his route success rate, especially his out route. Out route of 34% success rate is completely incredible. And having a tight end that can stretch the field, obviously he's not a true downfield threat that we've seen with other wide receivers and such, but a tight end that can honestly stretch the field past the 10 is really solid. So any team was going to be lucky to get him, and if a team is going to take him in the top 10, I'm perfectly fine taking him around this 106, 107 range. maybe even passing some of these quarterbacks if the tight end premium is strong enough. Next up is the wild card himself, the Heisman, Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter in Ray's draft went at the 104, which is kind of how everything I've seen looks to be. He's most likely a top 5 pick, potentially the number 1 overall pick. This dude has so much talent. It's just going to come down to, from a fantasy football perspective, what can I expect to get from him? And at the 108, I'm starting to get to the point where it's like, okay, do I take someone that has massive upside or kind of like a wide receiver 2, RB2 upside player? At the 108, I certainly feel confident taking a Travis Hunter. In IDP leagues, if he gets the dual designation on your platform, he's going to be the 101. I don't think there's a reason not to take him. Super high PFF scores, phenomenal route running success rates, especially down the field. He's not used as much, in the slot and such, but down the field being that true X guy. He has elite ball skills, and that helps on both sides of the ball, playing cornerback and wide receiver. It just comes down to what is his usage? What can we expect? It's going to be hard to see. Based on his landing situation here, Patriots need both wide receiver and DB. I think this is a position that you would want. You want him to go to a team that does have a need at both positions. I think if he falls to a team that doesn't necessarily need a wide receiver, I would slide him further down in the draft. Doesn't mean he won't be used, but I could see them saying, okay, we don't need to use him as much. Whereas if he goes to the Patriots, I expect him to play a significant amount of wide receiver snaps. Next is the start of Tier 3 with, what was surprising to me, Matthew Golden, wide receiver. Why would I say that? It's because in Ray's mock draft, he did go number 12 to the Dallas Cowboys. And I heard he recently declared, but I wasn't as familiar with his game as other players. So let's dive into it. Matthew Golden had 987 yards, 58 receptions, and 9 receiving touchdowns. Posted a solid PFF grade of 74, and he was a transfer from Houston his 2 previous seasons. The big things to me about Golden when looking at his passing chart and his success rate on his route running is he is definitely someone that can stretch the field. He's someone that's an explosive playmaker for the Longhorns all year and has an amazing deep speed. He can create a lot of separation and also has the body control for contested catches. Certainly someone that I think would fit well with the CeeDee Lamb type in Dallas. If the Cowboys end up taking him really this high at the 12th overall pick, I'm going to just boost him because that team's going to have a long leash. Overall, I think Golden isn't my favorite prospect in this tier, but given the situation in this mock draft, if he really does go that high, I'm going to probably just out of discipline take that pick because I know that the Cowboys are investing highly in him. Next up at the 110, wide receiver out of Ohio State, Emeka Egbuka. Egbuka, to me, is an every down wide receiver. He's probably the most complete wide receiver in this class. He's played in college 4 years, all at Ohio State, and we didn't know if he would come back or, in 2023 he was eligible, but he did come back and improved his scores and everything. He had 1,000 receiving yards, 81 receptions, 10 touchdowns. In Ray's draft, the Broncos select him at 20 overall, and he has similar player comps to someone like a Robert Woods. I think he's a perfect wide receiver, especially in offense that I trust with a young quarterback. Someone that can just do everything and be on the field all 3 downs is something I want to invest in, especially in this 110 range. And if we look at previous drafts, he's in the range of players like JSN, Zay Flowers, Jordan Addison. This kind of early 20s range, you're still getting a solid wide receiver too, most likely. So I feel pretty confident with him going into next season. At the 111, I will be going with Luther Burden III from Missouri, wide receiver. In Ray's mock draft, he goes to the Texans at 25, which is a perfect spot for him. He's a very situational player, in my opinion. And if he gets put in the right spots, he's going to thrive. And I think this is the perfect spot next to Nico Collins. Can really eat underneath as Nico Collins stretches the field. The big concern with Luther Burden is he did regress a lot this year, but I really do think it is based on his quarterback play, not the talent that he has. Last year in 2023, he had a 88 PFF score. This year he had a 78. So definitely a big drop, but the quarterback play and the success of Missouri as an offense as a whole really took a hit. He had 676 receiving yards and 6 touchdowns this season. If you look at Luther Burton's success rates, not that phenomenal. Was very good at things like the out route and the cross, and even his passing chart. A lot within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage, and then a few things down the field. That's kind of where he eats. And with someone like a Nico Collins that can stretch the field and open up the things underneath, I certainly love Luther Burton in that spot. Last pick of the first round and last pick of this video at the 112, I'll be taking Colston Loveland, Michigan tight end. In Ray's mock draft, the Colts selected Loveland at the 14th pick overall. High draft capital tight end in a tight end premium league. Definitely going to invest in him. He was the preseason tight end 1 before Warren went on a tear. And Loveland still put up a amazing 86 PFF grade this year. Continues to get better every year. And even in a down year for Michigan, performed really well. I don't have many concerns about him. He's not someone that stretches the field as much as like a Warren or others, but getting Anthony Richardson's a big body target that he can hit in those short range passes is honestly what that offense needs and what Anthony Richardson needs to really develop. Getting Anthony Richardson a weapon and really giving him one more season to say, is Anthony Richardson the future? Loveland's a perfect option because that team currently doesn't have a player and a tool like Loveland to help Anthony Richardson develop. I will put out one honorable mention. If the tight end premium was a little bit lower, I do think Tre Harris in Ray's mock draft went to the Steelers at 21. He's certainly an interesting prospect. In that range, you have to look at him. But from a dynasty perspective, I see him kind of being a Keon Coleman, Leggett type. He has a great speed and size combo, but there's just hesitation from the dynasty community. That's something I'm a little bit concerned with Tre Harris. So that's why I picked Loveland based on the format. But if the tight end premium was 0.5 or less, I'd probably be going Tre Harris here, knowing that wide receivers have more of an impact. That wraps up my mock draft. I'm still studying all the players, so if there's anyone that you want me to take a look at, definitely post in the comments below and I'll take a look at. This is a fun part about the offseasons, just talking prospects. Everyone has their different opinions and no one is obviously wrong. You know, you're going to hear a lot of things in a lot of different mock drafts. Like, for example, this mock draft from Ray, I was surprised by how high some of these wide receivers went. Personally, I don't think there will be that many wide receivers in like the late 20s, but it could happen. It could happen. There's a lot of needs that teams have. So it'll be fun to kind of play around with different mock drafts as the season progresses and see how players rise and fall. I do think a player like a Luther Burden, some teams will have different takes on, and especially from a dynasty perspective, Travis Hunter is the big wild card. We've never seen this. We don't have any player comps to use. It's really just going to come down to, is this team going to use them, and are we going to really know? So I expect that to be kind of a lot of the conversation around the NFL draft as we move forward. Anyway, if you like the video, subscribe. I don't know what I'm doing. But if you like it, subscribe, comment, support the channel, and check out dynasty-daddy.com. We got a lot of cool things coming soon. And until next time, I'll talk to y'all later.